Think of the person you love and respect the most and how you would treat that person. And that is the template for how you should treat yourself. And if you're unable to do that, allow the discomfort of your actions or lack thereof to be the guiding post towards creating the version of yourself so that you can serve yourself and treat yourself and see yourself in that same light of the ones that you respect deeply.
Welcome to the Time Has Come podcast. My name is Graham Wardle, and today I'm joined by Julien Lepage. Julien is a registered social worker, professional musician, and owner of Circles of Rhythm, which is a community drum circle organization based in Calgary, Alberta. For the past 16 years, Julien has blended therapy, trauma work, and music to bring healing to schools, seniors, corporate teams, and communities. He is passionate about how music, rhythm, mindfulness, and one's core values can support growth and healing through life's biggest transitions. We start out this podcast by playing some music, so sit back, relax. The time has come to welcome Julien Lepage to the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Julien.
Man, that was so fun.
That was fun.
Thanks,
Thanks, Tyrone.
That was fun.
Could I ask you, Tyrone, to take this beautiful instrument?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Awesome. Julien,
Yeah.
thanks for being on the show, man.
Thanks for inviting me to be on this beautiful space, beautiful
Yeah.
set. You're a pro.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I enjoy doing this.
Yeah, it's cool.
So the first time I heard about you was I went to the Circles of Rhythm drum circle, and I had a ton of fun. And it was a number of years later that we have connected again now. And we did the wellness retreat event at the Saskatoon farm there.
Epic.
And it was epic. It was a great time. And then we had this conversation. We're like, let's shoot a podcast. Let's dive into this.
Yeah.
So we started with some sound. Please explain this flute and the instrument that I was
Sure.
playing, so that everybody watching was like, obviously that was amazing.
Yeah.
Can you tell everybody what this is?
So this is a flute by High Spirits. It's a company in Arizona.
Yeah.
Highly recommended. This is like a top shelf instrument, but it's a Native American flute, and it's specifically a double flute. So it's got a nice drone sound that's playing in this key of D.
Okay.
And this is the double condor in D. And then this other one here with the holes, you can play on top of this drone note. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful instrument. And I really enjoy using it at these drum circles that I've been offering. I actually just started playing in 2020.
Yeah.
So this is my best friend during COVID, you know. We all needed one of those. And then the instrument you were playing is a Shruti box. So it's spelled SHRUTI. And it's a East Indian kind of instrument, reeded instrument, and it can change based on whatever keys you want. So in front of it, you can turn the little dials and you can change the key.
Yeah.
You can also hear about it like a harmonium. Some people play it's like a harmonium where they're squeezing it and they have a piano keys.
Yeah.
So similar sound.
Okay.
But this one here is more for toning and using your voice, creating a bit of a drone sound for anyone who is interested in that. And then Tyrone was playing a Remo drum. I love those drums. And that's the Buffalo Bahia drum. And honors our First Nations Indigenous people here in North America. We are here seated on Treaty 7 land, incredible space here in North America. And one of the things that I love about these instruments is that it honors our ancestry. It honors the generations of trials and tribulations of our ancestors who have worked really hard so that we can enjoy this technology and this capacity to link up together and enjoy nature again, but in a different way where maybe we get to evolve and kind of step a little bit further than our ancestors ever could.
Amen, dude. Well, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the instrument introduction as well. I want to rewind here for people to the beginning of music for you. Music is a journey. Music is healing. I'm putting words in your mouth, but I'm assuming you would say, can you bring us back to where you started with music and why you started?
Yeah, I would say that music did heal my life. As a young boy, even in grade 3 and grade 4, I actually had pretty significant depressive thoughts to the point where I actually didn't really want to continue to live. And I kind of did a lot of soul searching on that and understanding that it was from a place of repression, not being able to have my voice. It was more so like be seen and not heard, and never really had good mentorship or leadership in terms of identifying my emotions and expressing emotions, communication. So that was a little bit of a tip of the iceberg of what kind of caused that for myself. Also bullying and all sorts of things like that. And oftentimes I found myself like trying to be like the cool kid in class, the funny kid, or the sporty kid, or, the smart kid. And I was none of those. And I tried, and I was trying to find myself. And then one day I was visiting my cousins and Joël Cyr in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. And they had a drum set in the bedroom, and they kind of like showed us a few things, and they showed me this introductory beat, and I sat behind the kit, and right away I picked it up, and I was like, whoa. And I just like something clicked, it was just like an energetic alignment. It was like, this feels like home to me. And so, all my brothers and my cousins were playing video games, and I was in the bedroom for the whole time, just ripping on the drums and just learning new rhythms and creating my own rhythms. And that was when I was maybe, I don't know, I'd say 11 or 12. And I was a little obsessive at that time and bugging my parents, hey, can I get a drum set? Can I get a drum set? And financially, I grew up in a very humble home. And so, drums are expensive. And so my parents were like, like maybe you want to play the piano because we have one of those. We don't have any drums. And what was interesting is that you couldn't really stop me. So I just actually continued to, I got a pair of sticks and I started playing on pots and pans and garbage cans. I had this one little group. We called ourselves Stomp, but apparently there's already a group called Stomp group. But I was young enough to get away with it. And my buddy and I, we would do shows. And I remember one time we had like a 7-minute performance in front of like 300 like farmers at this corn roast in Saskatchewan. And I got paid, and I was like, I broke it down and I was like, I made $75 a minute. And I was like, what? Well, this is amazing. I get to be paid to play music, right? And so, again, I started saving money, and, we butchered chickens so I could save money, and sold chickens so I could save money, and gathering cans. And finally, I remember one day I was woken up abruptly by my dad stopping the car, and I looked up, and we're in front of my favorite music store in Saskatoon, and I'm like, "What are we doing here?" And my dad's like, "Oh, we're just gonna go in and check it out." Yeah. And so we go inside, and I'm looking around, and I go straight into the drum section, and I see the Yamaha Stage Customs, green 5-piece kit with a wood snare, and that was my drum set, and I see them stacked there, and it says sold, and I was like, "Oh, lucky kid." And I just kept looking, and I was hitting cymbals, and then an employee at the store comes up, and he says, "So you're the lucky kid today?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, what are you saying?" And he's like, "You get to take these drums home." And I was like, I was just like shocked. So this was like years later when I was like,
how old were you?
13 years old. So I had to wait and save my money. And my dad's like, "We're only paying for half. You got to pay for the other half." So I was like, done, like deal. I get to take these things home. Absolutely. Yeah. And so music just became part of my life. And my brother at the time was getting interested in playing the bass. And so before that, we were like enemies, you know what I mean? We butt heads all the time, and music really bonded us together. And so not only did it give me an opportunity to connect with my authentic expression, connect with my emotions, find a healthy way of releasing anger, you know what I mean? And, but also evolve from that place, and then connect with others, you know what I mean? So my brother and I were playing music together, and we were getting along. All of a sudden we had a common ground, a common language. And it just kind of evolved from there. So I started playing in bands, and I was like touring. I started playing country. I played folk. I played some jazz. I played some funk, played some heavy stuff. And what was really interesting is that it bridged all the gaps. So, whether it was an older gentleman who was like in his 50s, 60s playing country music, I was a young 14-year-old drummer, but because of my interest in it and my talent, I got to, play all sorts of cool gigs. And my first gig was at a biker bar when I was 14 years old.
How much fun was that?
I was like, how cool is this? I'm a farm boy. I never left the farm. And here I am, and there's like these cute girls walking around and like giving me compliments. And so anyways, that's a long story there. I could get into all sorts of healing in that space. But ultimately, I got to see that music was a bridge to connect people. And the amount of healing that comes from not only being able to connect with myself as an authentic individual, to give myself permission to be myself, right? And not be the funny kid in school, or not be the sporty kid, but I was just me. I was a drummer. I found my own thing, my own rhythm, so to speak. But also to know that I had value in the community, just as I was such a transformational thing. And over time, so I played in bands and did session work. And then finally I found an organization called Circles of Rhythm, which I now own, and I do community drum circles. So I jumped over a lot of things, but
nice, dude. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. We're going to dive into a lot of it here. So one of my personal questions for you, I'm sure many people watching as well, they don't feel musical.
Right.
They don't feel like they could play an instrument, or they can't keep a beat.
Yep.
That's me. I've always, when I was younger and I was in elementary school, the teacher said, you have to take music class and you have to have an instrument. And I was like, I want to play the drums. We don't do the drums. I was like, okay, I'll play the trumpet. And he's like, we already have 3 trumpets. I was like, okay, so why are you asking me what I want to play if I can't play any of these, right?
Didn't have much of a
so
choice.
what's left? He's like, you can only play the clarinet. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, it's this thing. And I was like, that's stupid. I was like, I don't want to play the clarinet.
Right.
So I spent
squeaky instrument. I played it before.
And so I spent all my time faking playing it between the girl beside me just to get through the class.
Wow.
And so it left a bad taste in my mouth with music. So, that's just my personal story, but
I think it's many people's story. Many people had a similar thing where that's a bit of the education system right now, is that, well, back in the day, we were meant to fit in this mold, you know what I mean? And I'm sorry that happened to you, but also keep going.
Well, what I was going to ask you was, what do you say to somebody who struggles with that identity block or that story in their mind about being musical, and maybe they've tried and they just don't feel it. They just can't get into it, but they would love to. It just feels like, well, that's just not me.
I love it. Well, can I answer your question by asking you a question?
Sure.
So what was your first experience like when you walked into the drum circle? What happened to that voice for you?
So I walked into the drum circle. I heard the drums from the outside. I was like, it felt very like primal and tribal, sort of like jungle-like.
Yeah.
And I like that because that was what I felt called to as a kid, was the drums. I had a little electronic drum set where you'd hit the sticks in the air and it had a little speaker and it would make the drum sounds. Cool. And I loved that. So when I walked in, I was like, oh, cool. Like maybe I can play these, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it's going to be fun. And, and so I think for me, being in a group of people, my mistakes could be covered. So I felt free to kind of be like, oh, that didn't work, but nobody heard it. So, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then, it was just kind of like, eventually I let go of that judgment and that sort of like, it has to be perfect, or what if I stand out? It was like, whatever. I can stop playing if I miss the beat and then come back into it. So that was really liberating for me in the sense of drumming. But in the sense of like, playing a flute or singing, that to me is like,
it's another level. Yeah. Well, and thank you for sharing that story, because I think that's exactly it. It's that process. Many people, whether it's a narrative around I'm not musical, or a narrative around I can't remember names, or a narrative around I don't like reading books, or whatever it is, it's a story that we tell ourselves, right? And it takes a conscious action towards correcting that story. And that's what I like about the drum circle, or the integrated community drum circle, is that it gives us a space where we are in a group of people. We feel like we can hide a little bit, but we can rewrite that story in real time. That's what I would call experiential learning. And we all know what it's like to have an experiential learning opportunity where it's like causing trauma and creating that narrative with, for example, that story of you in the music class. But for me, one of the things is that I try my best to create a safe space or safe container, at least where people feel empowered to step into that narrative and to say, it's okay for me to just be here. And oftentimes what happens is similar process as you. They walk in and they feel that frequency, that vibration. And you think about a child, right? You put on a piece of music, that child's going to bounce to the piece of music. They never received a lesson, right? It's just in us. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I like about drumming the most, and is that it's connected to that DNA, that ancestry. We've been doing this. Before we had language, we had song, and before we had song, we communicated through rhythm. It's interesting.
How so?
So that's what the anthropologists would say. So before we got language, they we would maybe communicate with like rhythm, like ooh ooh ah ooh ee, right? And then it was like intonation, and then all of a sudden we have like English language or different kinds of languages, and so it was like an evolution where rhythm was the first method of communication. Even just like hitting something, you could. From one mountaintop to the next mountaintop, we would communicate that way through rhythm. Right. And so I believe that it's in our DNA. It's that primal rhythmic nature is something that we as human beings have been doing for thousands of years, as long as we've been around as Homo sapiens, right? And so I think that's kind of a easy way for people to get into it. Also, what's interesting about drumming specifically is like, it's fun. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, you go watch your favorite band, and doesn't matter if you have musical skills or not, but everyone at one point in time will look at the drummer and be like, that looks like fun. I wish I could do that. I want to be that guy. I'd love to try that, but I can't. Then that's when the narrative comes in. But really what the integrative community drum circle does is that it gives everybody a permission to just put some sticks in their hands or a drum between their legs and just try. And it's a process of encouraging and inspiring people to just say, you know what, notice that thought, notice that monkey mind, I call it, right? But then just kind of jumping into it. But really that happened without me really giving you very much instruction whatsoever at that first drum circle experience. It just happens naturally. We have the setting, we're setting the setting where there's a bunch of people, all walks of life, young, old, right? Abled, not so able, different cultures, ways of existing, right? In the room, and it integrates all of that. And then we connect with a common language, which is the language of rhythm. So I think it kind of does it for me. It's not me that's doing anything. I don't know.
But you said something very specific, which I think I feel is very important to you, which is the safety.
Yes.
of that space. Of that,
That's a big part.
yeah. So there is something you're doing is you're creating that space, that container of safety for people to then go, it's okay for me to mess up in here. You're not saying, hey, you over there, play that drum now.
No,
you didn't get it right.
Yeah.
You know, it's not Whiplash. Remember that
movie?
movie
No, you can't
Whiplash?
play that drum. You got to play this drum.
Yeah.
You're not playing that saxophone. You're playing the clarinet. Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So you've created that safety. So that's what I'm taking away from your answer is like, you know, for myself, that was always the struggle was like, I would love to get into this, but I don't feel I could A, express myself the way I want to, and B, someone's telling me you have to do it this way and do this. And I'm like, I don't feel safe, man. Like I can't make a mistake and I'm being watched and graded, you know, and otherwise I'm going to fail music. Right. So I appreciate that about your work. And what you do is giving people the safety to make mistakes and also to kind of find their way and find their rhythm.
Totally. And there's a methodology behind it, right? So, I mean, I say a lot of it happens on its own, and that answer is true. But you're right. Part of what we offer, and that's special about Calgary's drum circle and the integrated community drum circle, or ICDC, because a lot of people have attended drum circles, like, for example, on the beach, but you might not feel called to go in because a lot of time it's performative. Like like really high, talented drummers that go in, and they're big kahuna drummers, we call them, right? And you may not feel called to jump in or join in a specific way because the talent is there. As in the ICDC, the methodology kind of teaches us to teach very basic rhythms and then get people feeling comfortable and successful quickly using these rhythms. And then you kind of give them the reins. It's a small guidance and saying, okay, now you've got this basic rhythm. Now that's like your home. That's your home rhythm. It's a safe container. And then all of a sudden you can kind of step outside of that and express yourself, try something else. And I always say, you know, if you make a mistake on a rhythm, just repeat it and then it becomes part of the beat. And then I always say that's why you don't date a drummer, you know, is because we like to repeat our mistakes. But that's a side note.
Awesome. Okay, let's rewind here. I know I watched a podcast with you and you were talking about values and how important values are in our lives. And I think you said safety was your highest value.
I think that's one of my guiding principles because from a nervous system standpoint, if we don't feel safe, we can't align and act from any other kind of position.
Yes.
So I think, and to develop an intrinsic sense of safety, I can't make you responsible for my safety. I need to find ways of creating my own sense of safety, which is a whole nother story, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of want to dive into because I think it's very unique and very interesting to kind of digest with you. So where did this attraction to safety, why did this prioritization of safety come from for you? And how did you find that within yourself?
Oh man, that's a big question. I love that question. I think it's because I know what it's like to not feel safe. Yeah. You know, I know what it's like to be bullied. I know what it's like to try to create a sense of safety by pleasing others, by saying the right thing, don't say the wrong things, don't stand out. Don't make an issue. In fact, you know, swallow your pride and just like, don't communicate those things because it's going to create a problem. All these different types of things. And so I think safety for me, even like in my own personal life, you know, I was once upon a time, I'm so grateful for this opportunity in my life. I was married and we were excellent partners together. However, there were things that, you know, for me, because I never really learned how to communicate my needs, you know, I got married very young. I was like 21 years old when I got married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it was like happy wife, happy life, you know, and I just really embodied those and it was good. But also at one point in time in a relationship or in any kind of situation, you need to communicate the hard stuff, right? In order for anything to move forward in a good way, there's going to be some discomfort in communicating the difficult things. And for me, I never really learned how to do that. And it was, and I came to a place through my own personal work, therapy, whatever else, and mentors and guides and things like that. I understood that it came down to, I don't feel safe to communicate these things. I don't feel safe in, you know, the discomfort of sharing vulnerable pieces about myself to somebody I care about, because I don't like to see this person sad. I want to see this person happy, and to whatever it is that I'm sharing in this particular situation is going to bring that vibe down. You know what I mean? And I'm averse to that feeling. Like there's a like almost like a physiological response when there's no peace around me. I am like, oh, how can I bring back peace? Right. So to be able to navigate that was quite a process. And I know what it's like for me to feel unsafe in specific situations. And that's just one of many examples.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
I think, and I assume that it would be that way. Most people, when they have, for myself, the highest value is now self-respect or integrity. I think self-respect now precludes integrity. I used to think integrity was my highest, and I was speaking with someone and they said, self-respect. And I was like, oh, right. Okay. And for me, it was because I went through an experience where I didn't have that self-respect. I didn't have that integrity with myself. And similarly, I didn't feel safe to express myself. And so it was only through that difficult point and those challenges that came with it that I was like, I will never dishonor myself or be out of alignment of integrity with myself. And if I am, then I will make take immediate action to rectify that, to come back in alignment, because I know how far you can drift.
Yeah.
When you're not in alignment.
Absolutely. And when you don't feel safe, there's a physiological response happening, right? So your brain actually goes offline and you're acting from that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, right? So fawn is everyone's familiar with fight, flight, freeze. Fawning is essentially like, oh yes, you go ahead, you know, giving away our power, right?
Like people pleasing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And similar to you know, like that has a huge impact on our sense of self-respect, self-confidence, things like that, right? So we need to be really cautious about that. And I think in order for us to step into that position of like maintaining our sense of integrity and things like that, one must feel safe to kind of step into that power or that voice or that communication or whatever it was, kind of taking that away. And that's a whole process. And there's bumps along the road. And if you're not okay with those bumps or the discomfort that comes from that, you're going to turn around and isolate, and you're just going to stay in your little sad soup that you're creating for yourself, which I know what that's like, and it's terrible.
So Julien, sorry to cut you off there. If somebody is, struggling with that feeling of safety too, what do you tell that person? How have you mastered that feeling of safety within yourself when you're in uncomfortable positions? How do you navigate that?
So we met at this wellness immersion retreat. You guys facilitated a breath work session. For me, breathing is the number one tool for anyone who is looking to develop a sense of intrinsic safety. Our breath is directly connected to the vagus nerve, which is all the way down into the abdomen and up to the lower part of the brain, which is responsible for that fight, flight, freeze center, the limbic area. And when we breathe into our belly in a specific way, where you expand your breath as you breathe in and contract, you're activating that vagus nerve, and you're actually sending signals back up to the brain to regulate the nervous system. So just by breathing, taking a moment, pause, being present, reconnecting with your environment, concepts of mindfulness, right? So maybe you're hearing some of the language. I do therapy and things like that. So, I've kind of taken my own healing and then also have been transitioning into helping other people, and I do therapy and things like that. So, but to have those moments where you're pausing, you're taking a deep breath, you're slowing down the exhale. So it can be a vigorous inhale into whatever physiological sensation. Oftentimes when we don't feel safe, we might have a pit in our stomach, our heart might be racing, a ball in our throat, maybe our thoughts are racing, or maybe all three, maybe we're feeling flush. So that's a really good physiological sign for you to take a moment and take a deep breath. And nobody really needs to know that you're doing this. It's kind of like this, you're a ninja, you know what I mean? Like you're just feeling that response. There's that cute girl walking and you're like, oh, I'm anxious. Or, your boss is coming in and you were, checking flights on whatever,
Expedia or whatever,
Expedia.
Yeah.
You're like, oh no. So you just take a deep breath, right? And just really connect with your breath. And then the slow exhale is actually what helps to regulate the nervous system a little bit more.
Okay.
So it's not so much the inhale, it's more how long you can release.
Okay. So you mentioned your social work there. Talk to me about that. Where did that come from, and how did that evolve to, from music to now social work?
Totally. So I actually tried to get into the music program at the University of Saskatchewan, and I did great in the applied application or audition. So you got to do like a musical audition, and it was great. Yeah. And then there was also a theory exam to get into the music program. And I sat down in there and I looked at the page, and I had a few piano lessons, and I got through the first page, and then I turned the page and I was like, circle of fifths, what is this? And I had no idea. So I have zero musical theory. So I handed the test in, and my mom is a social worker. And I've always kind of known that I'm a very empathetic person. I understand people very well. I've always been, as a person who's needed to become a people pleaser to create a sense of safety within myself, right? Within my surroundings, I got really good at creating and working with people, right? So I was like, oh, I can work with people. And so I chose to take social work instead. And not just because I was good with people, but also I knew that there was the possibility of combining music therapy and art therapy and different kinds of therapies out there. So I knew it was possible, but I didn't really know. And what I did know, though, is that my heart, it was on my heart to include music in my work somehow, one way, shape, or form. As a therapist, as a social worker, I didn't really think I'd be a therapist. I'd just be a social worker. I just wanted to include music because it was helpful for me. And as I continued to step, and in my studies, I kind of focused on mental health because there was some mental health in my family, and music because that was my passion, and those were my study, like where I focused my studying. And as I continued to step, and like keeping on my heart, like my true north, I call it, like just knowing that music, incorporating music in my work would be there. I didn't really know. I let life guide me, so to speak. And I found a way to bridge my passion and my profession together in social work. And so, yeah.
Dope, man. That's so cool. I love that. I love how life will kind of bring you back home, making that sense. You can't
as long as you're listening.
And as long as you're listening.
And that requires a lot of courage, but also I think one of the biggest things is that I was surrounded by people who could see in me something that I maybe wasn't able to see myself. So I think for those of us out there who are living in community, I think we can also make a big impact on other people just by seeing their talent or seeing their light and encouraging them to bring out that light. So I had people around me who did that for me, which they could see that more than I could. And that really was a transformational point as well.
I have a few stories in my life like that as well, where somebody saw that even when I was going through rough times when I was in high school, and my math teacher, she saw in me something, and she saw past all the behavior issues and things that I was doing, and she would look through that. And I was like, you actually see me.
It's what a beautiful thing.
That really saved me through high school, because I was going through a very difficult time as well in my younger years. And the fact that she saw me didn't, she obviously still laid boundaries when I was being ridiculous, but she still had fun with me, and she still saw me, and she still encouraged me. And I was like, man, what a beautiful blessing. And I agree. It's such an impactful shift that you can make in someone's life by just acknowledging and seeing their light. And you said that to Tyrone earlier today when we were just coming out here to set up. And you suggested something that just kind of came to your mind. And he was like, yeah, that's awesome. I would love to do that. And he was getting so excited. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So,
just to tie that in, because essentially as a facilitator in the community drum circle, or even as a therapist, my role is to simply be a mirror of the light that I see in other people. So if, for example, as somebody is playing a unique rhythm, whether it's a child who's playing a little tiny shaker, or maybe someone who's like really, skilled and they're playing a very cool pattern on a drum, to sculpt that person out, to get them to keep playing, and then to get everybody to like stop and listen to this one particular rhythm, and just to like elevate that voice. you know, that's a small example of like what it would be like for us to empower one another. And, but also to, for example, that one little shaker is different than the loud boom, boom, boom drum voices, right? But as soon as you highlight that, and then you bring back the group, you can say something like, okay, now let's make sure we're not losing touch of that one small sound. And everything changes when we bring that perspective, including within the person who's doing that, right? Because they're like, wow, my contribution matters, right? When they, you know, maybe they're a little disengaged and they're just like, oh, I only got the shaker today. Everyone else got a drum. We ran out of drums, right? But all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I have the shaker. It's just this different posture. Nothing's changed other than our perception. And that can be simply by highlighting and just shedding light on like, wow, like I really love that contribution.
Yeah. One of my favorite questions to ask my guests is what I call the golden ticket. So it's like why you do what you really do. It's like the thing that lights you up. I'll give you an example if something doesn't come to your mind right away. For me, you know, I've spent a lot of my life acting and telling stories and whatnot, and that's fun and I really enjoy that. But the golden ticket for me is giving my best, doing that, putting it all out there. And unlike theater actors that have an audience that they go, oh, wow, and you can see them crying or they're, you know, reacting to it and it's meaningful to them. When you're doing it on television, it's just a bunch of crew and cameras. So you don't have that sort of reaction or that, hey, that was a good story. I liked that story. It touched me, it moved me. So for me, it was receiving, you know, a few letters from people that said, you know, your character's journey and the way you portrayed the character made me reach out to my father. And now I've healed a relationship with my father. And I'm like, that's not why I did it.
No.
But that's so awesome to be able to, and that's what has impacted my life through storytelling is I've watched a movie and it's changed my life and I've looked at my life differently.
Yes.
So that's what I would call a golden ticket for you in circles of rhythm and your work with social work and working with people. What do you lay your head down at night on your pillow and go like, man, I love my life and I love serving these people and doing what I do?
Yeah, totally. A few things, but let's see if I can hone it in. I think it's simply, for me, what really pumps my tires and makes me feel like I'm just like loving this life journey, this human experience, is to see when people find and develop that sense of courage within themselves and self-compassion to love themselves enough, right? Because if you don't love yourself in a way, you're not going to step towards yourself in a specific way, right? And so what really is the golden ticket is to help people see themselves a little bit more clearly in a way where they're able to embrace their uniqueness, their authentic expression, and to step with courage into creating a life story that is in alignment with that authentic expression. Because there is a lot of fear of rejection when we're called to do something or to say something. And so when somebody is facing the discomfort that is inevitable as they step towards that authentic expression, that's really what pumps my tires. And I think drumming is like the first little point where you're cracking the egg and people are like, whoa, what is that? Like, I have a voice that is unique. In fact, I'm part of this bigger circle. Yeah, there's this big rhythm happening, but also I can actually have a different voice than everyone else too, and still be part of the whole, right? And so that balance between how can I still be with my community, with my family, with my job, with whatever it is, but also find my unique, authentic expression.
Is there a moment that comes to your mind where somebody came up to you or you saw that happen or you started working with someone and then they had this breakthrough and you're like, wow. Does any moment come to mind or is it more in general?
I think there's a few. Let me see if I can find one. I think many times people have come up to me and I say this with humility because it's not me, but it is what like setting the stage for that, right? And back at the drum circle and safety, my role as a facilitator is to set the stage for people to feel safe in that. And there's this one gentleman that comes to mind where he said, you know, I used to suffer with crippling anxiety, and he was at the hospital. I was, as part of my journey, I worked in the inpatient mental health ward and the psych ward, and I brought the drumming program there. And it was like a transitional discharge model where people who attended when they were an inpatient could continue to attend the same program as an outpatient, which is kind of unusual for some mental health programs. And this particular person was struggling with substance abuse, alcoholism, crippling anxiety, and thoughts of suicide. And as when you're on the hospital ward, sometimes they'll do groups, and they kind of like say, they send you there, right? You're going to go do this. And so he went, and he said, I was the guy who was sitting in the back row, back to the door, and like, kind of like about to run out. But something happened within that drumming experience, and you made me feel safe to the point where I sat in the second row, and then I sat in the first row. And then he took my facilitator training where he learned how to lead these drum circles. And now he will help me lead seniors drum circles and drum circle. The Friday night, that's like 100 people, man. And he'll jump in the middle of that, and no anxiety. He's sober, and he's now got like, you think I've got lots of flutes? This guy's like got tons of flutes. He's got like this big gun case. He comes in, opens it up, and it's just a bunch of loving, healing instruments, flutes, right? Those are the real weapons. And that one comes to mind. And he says, if it wasn't for that drumming experience and kind of your leadership and you kind of giving me permission to kind of go through my process, I probably wouldn't be alive. So it's a big deal.
I bet you give thanks for that a lot.
It's I wish I could take credit, but I think I have
for doing your part, just
sure.
for giving your gift and then having that impact. It's not that you do it to do that.
Yeah, I think I'm so grateful for my sense of spirituality and my faith, because I think oftentimes my monkey mind gets in there and it's like, what's the point? Like, am I actually making a difference? And those stories, as much as they're great, what I've learned is that they'll never be good enough for me, which is kind of interesting. So what I'm learning is that I need to be able to tell myself and say, Julien, you're doing a good job. Like, because if I value the stories of the pretty girl who's saying I'm cute, or the man I who I value is saying, oh, you're doing a good job, or my boss saying, oh, you're a good employee, or my parents saying, oh, you're such a good boy, I'm still giving them the power. And when that goes away, for example, and
then who am I?
The dark night of the soul type of work, I'm still left with myself. And what I'm learning is that I need to be able to give myself that sense of self-worth. And it comes down with those principles of self-respect, integrity, and things like that. But in those moments of difficulty, I find that my spirituality, my faith, my connection to a power greater than myself has helped me to move past it and be able to accept those compliments. Because I think a lot of times I would just not accept them. But now I can kind of humbly receive them. And so, yes, you're right. I am grateful for those compliments, because I think it's showing me the path. But what I've learned is that that's only half the journey. Yes. I need to like be able to give myself that sense of satisfaction and know that that's not why I'm doing it.
Totally.
But it's nice to hear.
It's nice to hear. Yeah, it's nice to hear. Julien, one of the first things I got an impression from you was you're very driven. And you said, when on the drive out here, you were talking about growing up on a farm, working your hard work ethic.
Yep.
And so when you are thinking about your life and what's next for you, what are you driving towards? Where are you aiming? What is the vision that you have that you want to create in this life for yourself?
This is it, Bo. This is it, bro. Like, honestly, I was sitting in a sound bath last night, receiving this excellent sound experience in Sylvan Lake by one of the people who I've trained specifically with the drumming, but not for the sound work. She's done her own breath work and things like that. And at the end of it, they were just like, no, find a feeling of gratitude, and I want you to breathe and meditate and reflect on that. And for me, it was just like an authentic moment of saying, I love my life. I love what I'm doing. I don't need more. I'm grateful for everything that I have. I think, Gabrielle Bernstein talks about like building a culture of appreciation, right? And I think this is it. And I think as long as I continue to foster this culture of appreciation, let go of the outcome, and so it's, if you think about Bashar, so find the highest excitement
Daryl
do
Anka
that.
guy?
He's kind of a strange dude.
Yeah.
He
I think his name's Daryl Anka and he channels Bashar. Yeah.
Find the highest excitement, do that to the best of your ability, letting go of the outcome. And I think I'm in that space right now. And I fall in and out of it still, but I'm surrounded enough by incredible people such as yourself, such as Tyrone, and this incredible people, this community that I'm surrounded by, that reminds me of that. And again, my faith, my spirituality. And so what do I see for myself is more of this. I have to be quite honest. Like, when we had that conversation, I didn't really know that this is the level of podcast you do. I'm like, whoa, this guy's legit. But I remember a few months before in some of my meditations, is like, I had this like download. I'm like, I got to get on a podcast. And I don't know how I was going to do it. I had a bit of a path. I went on LinkedIn and I looked at a few people, but that just doesn't really go anywhere. And I let go of that. And it's interesting, as soon as you let go of it, how things flow. And so now I get this opportunity. So for me, it's about gratitude of saying, I'm exactly where I need to be. And I want to continue to do that. Sadhguru talks about doing what is required. I would love to continue to do what is required and to be in spaces and places where I get to have something to contribute, to be of service. That's essentially, so safety is a big value, but I think for me, it's to serve, to be of service to others. As long as I can do that, I'm a happy camper.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite questions to ask my guests, and I have a guess already. I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm excited to see how you say it. So I asked my guest this question because I came up with it while I was working on set. And the cameras were being set up and the lights were being set up. And I was bored. And this is before we all had cell phones on set. And, some of the best ideas come to you when you're bored and you're just sitting there hanging out. So this idea pops into my head about a magic painting. And so I start asking people this question about a magic painting and their answers come back. And I go, wow, this is so cool. Okay, great. So for years, I would just, for fun, even at a dinner party or whatever, I just ask people this question. And so I'm going to ask you this question now, and I would love to hear your answer. So, Julien, if you had on your wall in your bedroom or your living room, you had this giant magic painting. And anytime you looked at this painting, you could feel any feeling you wanted to feel to any degree that you wanted to feel it. What feeling would you choose, and what would be on your painting to represent that?
Oh, I think unconditional love. When I look at that painting of unconditional love, I see people of all walks of life gathered together in peace, putting their differences and taking those differences and celebrating them, where we can respectfully disagree and embrace our own unique, authentic expression as an important component to the big pie, this pie of the human experience. And where we have a sense of tolerance and acceptance for our neighbors, and we can embrace each other with tenderness, with respect, and a generous spirit. Unconditional love.
Beautiful, man. On the painting, you said there's a bunch of, would it be like a circles of rhythm kind of type?
Yeah, sure. I think we're all just gathered together and, just a beautiful gathering, and it's, and pockets everywhere, but there's just like this harmony, right? It's just like people eating together, people playing music together, people doing cold dips, whatever it is. But I think just this almost like a mosaic. I see a mosaic of the human experience.
Yes.
And as you zoom in, you can see an individual conversation between maybe an elder and a child playing chess together, right? And then you zoom out and you see this big mosaic of unity, right? But every time you zoom into another piece, it's another small little pocket of that. That's the painting.
Beautiful. Is there colors? Do you have? Is it just multicolored? Do you see warm? Is it blue? What do you see?
So if you zoom out, thank you for this. This is a fun
It's
question.
fun, right?
It's really, really high frequency shit, man. Pardon my language. I see a face. Like I see the face of the I am. I don't know what that is, but it's like moving, right? Yeah. And it's purples and greens and blues and some like shade, some shadow for sure.
Yeah.
And definitely lots of like silvery, and it's kind of a a smiling, moving.
I was gonna say, it feels like it's moving.
Yeah. Face.
Okay, beautiful. I love this, and the actor in me is because I'm studying characters and the emotions and what they feel and why they feel that. So this is part of the reason I get so excited about asking people this question, because I get to learn how you uniquely experience unconditional love.
Sure.
So for you, Julien, if you were to explain this feeling of unconditional love to someone who had never felt it before, didn't know they'd felt it before, maybe, how does Julien experience in his body this feeling of unconditional love?
Like physiologically?
Where is it? Is it in your chest? Is it in your head?
It's the whole being.
Being, yeah.
For me, it's like an expansive, I'm almost there, right?
Yep.
It's an expansive presence of stillness and activation happening at the same time, where almost like every single one of my cells are vibrating, and yet I'm calm and still at the same time. And that vibration and that frequency is like a breath, right? If I breathe into it, it can expand, and I could go as far as, sending it to my kids who are traveling in Washington right now, and then coming all the way in, and I could go all the way to the stars if I wanted to. You know what I mean? I could go all the way out. I could travel as far as I want to the infinity and beyond. And then also, as I inhale, I can bring it to all the cells and the molecules and the atoms, and I can just like think about that, and I can see that. So it's like a visual, but also it's like I can go as big or as small as I want, and it's a vibration, it's a frequency, it's a buzzing, it's a hum, it's like the sound of the river.
Still and activated. You said both at the same time.
Yeah, that's life.
Yes, that's life. So thank you for sharing that.
That's so cool, man.
I know, right? Because as you're saying it, I'm starting to feel it. I'm like,
thanks,
okay,
man.
I get it. Very similar to another feeling. I would call it cosmic love. And I had an experience in a float tank where I left my body.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Graham anymore.
Yes.
I joined this cosmic unconditional love
Isn't
that
it
has
beautiful?
always been. It's the most beautiful thing in the world.
So good.
It's the best ever.
It's so good.
It's the best ever.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for that. Those moments.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with me. How did you get there? That's my question.
To the question?
The painting is cool. Like, we'll talk about that. But in the float tank, were you breathing? Were you meditating on anything? Like, what were you doing?
So I was actually having a mini panic attack.
Oh, wow.
It was my first float tank ever. This is before, there were businesses and whatnot. And I was in Vancouver. I had heard about them on Joe Rogan's podcast. And so I tried sitting in my bathtub, and that didn't work.
Sure. This is not big enough.
After 20 minutes, I was like, I'm bored. Like, there's nothing's going to happen. So then I finally found on Craigslist or something a guy who had a samadhi tank in his apartment in North Vancouver, and I sent him a message, and he said, "Yeah, you can come and float." And so I went in there, and he, told me what to do, and said, "Watch out for aliens," or he said something funny like that. And so I got in there, and I was struggling to kind of get comfortable because it was so new. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't, And so
Was it completely dark in there?
Yeah.
Wow.
You've done it before?
I've never done a float, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want to.
You would love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely dark, no light, no sound.
I know what it is, but
12 inches of water for the people that are watching that have never heard of
Salt
float
water.
tanks. Salt water, 1,000 pounds of Epsom salts. And you float. And what's interesting is the mind doesn't have the stimulus anymore. And we're used to hearing the river and your voice and Tyrone behind the cameras. And
just you.
It's just you. And then the mind goes, well, do I fall asleep? I can't fall asleep. I'm in the water. So what do? But there's nothing happening. So you start making noise. You start hearing your breath. You go, okay, I'm still alive. Because you start to lose a sense of where the walls are. Right?
That's a trip.
And you're completely sober. But you're like, what's going on? So
Yeah.
I started to have a little panic attack.
Wow.
And I was just about to get out. And this other part of me said, Graham, you waited 2 years to do this. You're going to get out 15 minutes into a 90-minute session? Like, come on, man. And I was like, all right, but am I safe? Like, am I going to drown? This other part of my voice that was very calm. So other part of my inner voice was very calm and said, no, you're fine. And so I said, okay, now what? And it was just breathe, relax, let go, and be open. Breathe, relax, let go, and be open. That's what I did. And so I let go, and then it was very slow, but it was kind of like this dissolving of my body. I dissolved, and then I popped out of my body, and now I'm floating in the room, above the tank, and I'm looking down at the tank, And at the time I didn't know who these other beings were, but there were 3 other beings around me. I now refer to them as my guardian angels, but back then I didn't know who they were, what they were.
Hello, guardian angels.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, these other beings, they were made of light and love, but we had a job, we had a mission.
Sure.
And so we were looking at this tank and we were discussing what we could work on in the time that we had. And so there was ideas being floated around, and I was like, okay, let's pick one because we only have so much time, and let's get to it. And they agreed. And so then I looked back at the tank, and this thought came into my mind, is like, who are we working on? But before I could grab that thought, I was like, and I was back in my body. And it was violent. It was very quick. It was like, it wasn't like waking up from a dream like, oh, whoa, that was a crazy dream. It was like being slingshotted back into my body. And I got scared and I started to cry because I was like, I'm so disoriented. Like I've never felt this before. What just happened? Yeah. And then I was like, I'm okay. Like, okay, I'm still alive. Okay.
Whatever that means.
Whatever. Yeah, right. So then I was like, all right, well, I still have time left. It's like, let's go back. So I laid back down in the water and I slowed my breathing down again, repeated that, relax, let go, be open, just let go. And then this time it was very quick. Out I went. And I always have to preface this because the language that I have and the words that I use aren't going to do it justice, but it wasn't Graham, this identity of who I am here. It was my essence. So I returned to this cosmic love.
They call that ego dissolution.
Okay. So there was no more Graham. So the concept of Graham was gone, but I still felt like me, whatever that is. And so then I went to this expansive feeling of what I would call cosmic love, because it was this unconditional, always existing, has always been, will always be. Everything is made of this. It all comes from this.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, it was like, well, of course it's this way.
Yeah.
What else could it be?
Right.
And so I was like, wow, beautiful. And so I was, flying around into different rocks and trees and plants and star systems, and I could just be anything and everywhere all at once. It was beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I said, where's Graham in all of this? What is this idea of Graham? This thing of Graham came to my mind.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I said that, it was like a bathtub being pulled and right back in my body. That was excruciating. There was a lot of emotions and feelings, but that was my experience of cosmic love, very close to what you were sharing with your unconditional love experience of through your whole cells and your entire being. Like you said, you could stretch it out. So thank you for sharing that,
Thank you for sharing that too.
Man.
Like, what a beautiful thing. Can I ask you another question?
Yeah, bro.
How is it that you incorporate your spirit guides or your guardian angels? What is that
Today?
relationship just in general? Like how do you involve them in your life's mission?
So I do my very best to be in a constant state of prayer.
I love that.
To be always listening.
Yeah, bro, with you. I believe that life is ceremony.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm constantly, as best I can, listening, even when I don't want to listen. I was telling Tyrone a story this morning about that. I was like, I don't want to listen.
Yeah, there's those parts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, well, it's not going to work this way. And then they were right. And I was like, okay, fine. Right. So I've integrated that into my life as best I can, that just to relax, to listen, to trust. Before this podcast, I was saying some prayers and just asking how to conduct this conversation, how best to navigate this, what to focus on, lead me, guide me. And before we started the podcast, I said a prayer as well.
Yeah.
So to me, that's very important. I've tried to lead my life from my own ego and from my own desires and stuff. And it costs me 10 times and I get half as much.
Yeah.
So I do my best to let God's plan or the divine plan lead me, my guardian angels to tap me on the shoulder and say, turn left, don't go down that path, or go for it, Graham. You're afraid, but go for it. So that's how I do my best. And it's so much fun. It's like Neo in the Matrix. Like you can dodge bullets. You can literally morph things and move around things that were not possible. You're like, how did that work?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say similarly to how you was like, I want to be on another podcast. I want to do another podcast. And you're like, well, I'm going to try my thing. And LinkedIn, that didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work. Yeah.
But you put it out there.
Yeah.
And then we connected again, and now we're doing a podcast.
Boom. Beautiful.
I love the way God, the divine, works that way.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a beautiful, and those words of, you said, trust, let go. What were the words that you recited in the tank?
Trust, let go, and be open. And that's actually a
open.
mantra from, I think it was, MAPS, that there was a CBC radio program, a 3-part series about psychedelic therapy. And within that radio program, that was one of the mantras that they had suggested through cognitive behavioral therapy for these patients.
Yep.
And so I had heard that and I went, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from.
Yeah. And I think those words, that language, if we can embody those principles in life and tap into kind of that higher power, those guardian angels or spirit guides or
whatever you want to call
the
them.
divine, God, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, whatever you want to call it. And there's multiple iterations of that essence. And you kind of I like to think about my good friend Robert says, you wake up in the morning and say, God, I make no decisions today. You're the one driving. I'm handing you the keys.
But you are making a decision to listen to God.
Of course. But also to know that he's driving, but I will step.
Yes.
I'm simply stepping. And I know that every single one of those steps, including my mistakes, which is an interesting one, are you guiding me so that I may deepen my awareness of you and my calling so that I may be of service to you. So your will may be done,
Amen.
Not mine.
Amen.
And what's interesting is that oftentimes, we are faced with challenges and maybe we make mistakes and we're feeling guilty and, God forbid we feel ashamed, right? But that component, and back to kind of answering your question of what really is the golden ticket, when I can help people and within myself, because I'm my best student, I'm my best research project, is we can help ourselves tap into those moments or those missteps and identify how that is actually part of the training program for us to evolve into that higher self, that divine being that we're called to be and to share. And, oftentimes it's I wish I learned that lesson. Didn't I learn this lesson? It's well, we're not dead yet.
Yeah.
So we're still learning. We're still on this path of learning. And another one of the values, so safety, right? Authenticity, but that growth mindset to really, in spirituality, that growth mindset to be able to look at, okay, it's not glass half full. It's more so, how is it that I can learn more about myself and maybe reclaim my shadow or parts of myself that are still needing to be healed, but also move forward in a good way and make repair, and so that's that journey of stepping towards the discomfort. Yeah. Such a fun thing.
Yeah, bro. Thanks for doing this conversation, man. I really enjoyed this. Is there anything before we wrap up and finish up the podcast that you want to share, or a message that's important to you that you want to communicate? If this is the last somebody ever sees of you, what would you want to share with them?
Be kind to one another, but also when you learn to be kind to other people and you see how you're able to put other people's needs first, understand that is the template for you to learn how to do that to yourself and apply those same principles of service and kindness and generosity and forgiveness and to embody that for yourself. So think of the person you love and respect the most and how you would treat that person. And that is the template for how you should treat yourself. And if you're unable to do that, allow the discomfort of your actions or lack thereof to be the guiding post towards creating the version of yourself so that you can serve yourself and treat yourself and see yourself in that same light of the ones that you respect deeply.
I love that, dude. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching. For those who are interested in Julien and his work with the Circles of Rhythm, and you also have the Castle Wellness.
Castle Wellness
as well. All those links will be down below in the show notes. Julien, thank you so much again for doing this, man.
Awesome.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome, dude. All right, guys. See you next time. Well, that's it, everybody.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of the podcast and watching all the way to the end. Thank you, Julien, for being on the show, for sharing your insights and your wisdom. And if you're interested in joining Julien and myself for the podcast after party, head on over to timehascome.com. We're going to continue the conversation. You get a chance to ask a question as well. I know I have many more questions to ask Julien, so join us over there. We're going to continue the conversation with the podcast after party. All right, now I also want to say a quick word about scammers. You probably have heard me say this before, but for those people who haven't heard me say it, there's a lot of people pretending to be me. They'll show up in the comments, they'll have a similar photo of mine to my photo, and they'll be pretending to be me trying to scam you. So just watch out, don't engage, and just block and report them as best you can. I also want to thank all the members of timehascome.com and our sovereign creators for supporting me, this podcast, and this mission to share this Time Has Come podcast with the world. Thank you to each and every one of you. That's it, everybody, and I'll see you at the podcast after party. Cheers.